Hey, we've talked about how when you're on those sales calls, or as my friend and mentor Joe Peachy calls it, the core story, when you're in that situation, you need to have a process. And that process needs to be focused on asking questions because you're trying to diagnose before you prescribe. And so you're the pro, you've been here before, you've got a process, you're going to help them through, you're going to make it easy for them to find out if what you've got will make their life easier, see if you are who they're looking for, and you're going to see if you can help them get what's good for them. All those things. What can trip us up though is when the prospect throws out questions. And you know the classic question, well, how much is it? And it's easy to get caught by that and want to be the guy that knows the answer. And they ask a question and you know the answer. So they go, so you're saying, so tell me about what's going on right now. What's your concern about the way, this thing that you're doing that I might be able to help with? How's that thing working right now? And they say, well, it probably depends on, how much it is. And you're gonna be like, well, it's this and this and this, but if you get these options, and now you're right back in that trap of 1, talking too much, 2, talking too much about you and your product before you even know what they need, and 3, getting off track of your process because you're answering this question about price way too early. Hey, we will talk about price. Trust me, you need to know how much this is, but first we got to build up some value. We got to make sure there's a problem that you think you have that I might be able to help you with. You want to make sure that you understand their problem and that they know that you understand their problem. Then we want to make sure they understand the size and the magnitude and the value of that problem, that if it got solved, how valuable would that be? Well, let's establish that in hopefully dollars. What would that save you? How much more could you do? What would be the economic benefit of that? Well, now let's compare that to the price of my product or my service. Big ROI here. A lot of return on this investment. For this little bit of investment in me, you're going to get a big return because we're going to solve this problem. See, that's what you got to get to. You want to just jump into price because they're going to be like, oh, that sounds like too much, because you haven't talked about how big their problem is and how much their problems cost them. See, right now they're thinking like, well, that's just the way it is. That's just kind of sunk cost. It just is what it is, and they don't think about it in dollars. But you tell them the price of your product, well, they think of that in dollars. So that's a classic one to get sidetracked on. But even if they say something like, well, would you be able to handle this situation? Oh, yeah, we can handle that situation. And you jump right in again and get off track. Talk about, listen, you control the process. You ask the questions. So when somebody asks a question like that, say, hey, that's a great question. Let me write that down as a good thing to do too. Let me write that down because I don't want to miss it. And then get right back on your process. So tell me again, or tell me more, or now tell me about what's going on here. However you get back onto it. But you want to acknowledge the question. Hey, that's a great question. Let me actually maybe just write that down quick so we don't lose track of it. Now, and I'll get to that, but first I'm going to really need to understand this. It depends on how much they're like, well, wait a minute, why don't you just tell me how much it is? Well, I could, but I don't know what I need to offer you. I don't know what I'm selling. I'm not sure if I'm a fit. I'm not just going to sell you stuff if it's not going to help you, and I don't know if it's going to help you unless we talk. So I really need to talk first. And chances are they're going to let you move back into your process because they don't really know a process. They're just anxious and jumping in and like, well, they're already thinking. The good news is if they're asking about price, that's a buying signal. They're already thinking, I might need this. This could be a thing for me. I wonder how much it is. But you've got to help them help themselves by building up the value of the problem so that when you solve it, there's a ton of value there that's more, way more than the cost of the investment in whatever you do. So getting back to the objection or the interruption rather, when they interrupt you with a question, be super polite about it, right? That's great. I love the engagement here. So listen, that's a great question. How much is it? We'll totally talk about that. Let me just write that down so I don't forget about it. Okay, now, so what we need to do is get back on here and help me understand where you're at so I can make sure I give you the right answer. I give you the right solution, that we craft the thing that's really going to solve your problem, which requires us to understand your problem. So tell me about that again. Listen, they're going to go back and do that. They're going to get on board with you in the process if you're calm, if you slow it down, if you're super professional about it. Listen, hey, that's a great question. You know what? Let me just take a note quick. Okay, yeah, all right. So let's get back on tell me more about where you're at here, and then we'll come back to that question, that price or whatever they asked, right? Just calm and collected. You know what you're doing. You're the pro. And they're going to do that. And listen, and if they don't, it's like, hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. No, seriously, I need to know the price. Listen, if they're not willing to go through the process of helping you understand their problem so that you can help them solve it and know that it's going to be a good fit, well, then that's probably not something you want to deal with anyway. If they're so stuck on jamming your solution into their problem, or knowing what the price is, or knowing that you have this, and this option, when we're not even sure they're going to need those options, well, you can't work with that. Listen, you've got a process for a reason. It's because it's the most effective, most efficient way to help you help them. And if they're not willing to let you do that, it'd be like walking into the doctor's office and he says, well, where does it hurt? And you're like, well, how much is this going to cost? He said, well, I don't know, because I don't necessarily know what's wrong with you. Well, it's my shoulder. Now, how much is it going to be if it's my shoulder? Like, well, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with your shoulder. And I don't know if, what we're going to need to do. We're going to do therapy. We need to do surgery. Kind of a range of options here. Think of it that way. If the patient in that case is going to be so obstinate about what it costs, well, the doctor just can't help. Well, next, right? I mean, I know you're excited that you finally got somebody you can talk to instead of a gatekeeper or voicemail, but we gotta look for people who are looking for us. And if somebody's that stuck on being obstinate, that's just not somebody we're going to want to work with. It's just not going to work. So have a process, be smooth, and don't worry when they throw you off. Just say, hey, that's a great question. Appreciate that. Let me write it down, and then get right back on your process, because you're a pro.